I was 17 when I realized that life was not fair. I was cleaning up shattered glass in the kitchen of the mansion. Yes, mansion, where I worked as a cleaner, when Nathan stood over me laughing. Not the kind of laugh you'd share with a friend, but the kind that made your skin crawl. The kind that made you want to disappear. "You missed the spot, rat," he said. His name was Nathan Whitmore, the only son of billionaires. Spoiled, cruel, and the kind of rich where consequences were a myth. I kept my head down and scrubbed harder. If I didn't, Mrs. Whitmore would dock my pay again, and I couldn't afford that. My mother was in a hospital bed, counting breaths like coins, and every cent mattered. Nathan took a sip from his expensive drink and accidentally tipped it over, letting it spill all over the spotless marble. "Oops," he said, smirking. That was Nathan. A walking punishment wrapped in designer clothes. He humiliated me for fun, every day. But what he didn't know is that I was watching, and remembering, and planning, for years. Fast forward a decade. I'm 27 now. And Nathan? He still thinks I'm just some nobody who vanished after high school. He doesn't know my name anymore. But I never forgot his. And tonight is the night everything changes. It started with a fake job offer. I spent years building a new identity, becoming someone else entirely. No longer the skinny janitor boy with second-hand shoes. Now I was Logan Blackwell, a private consultant in international investments. Suits tailored. Words sharp. Fake LinkedIn glowing. The Whitmore Group was expanding. And greedy people are easy to bait. I sent the email with a smirk. To the board of Whitmore International. Logan Blackwell here. My team specializes in cutting-edge market disruption. I'd like to offer you a one-time opportunity to double your East Asia returns. I knew Nathan would bite. His father was getting old. Nathan wanted to prove himself. And he needed someone like Logan Blackwell to look impressive to Daddy. And just like that, I got the meeting. When I walked into the mirrored elevator of the Whitmore Tower, I saw myself clearly for the first time in years. Slick, controlled, cold. The receptionist smiled at me. "Mr. Blackwell, 57th floor. They've been expecting you." Of course they had. Nathan greeted me with a handshake. He didn't recognize me. Not even a flicker of doubt in his eyes. "Logan, thank you for flying in," he said, grinning that same fake grin from years ago. His office smelled like leather and arrogance. I sat down across from him. "So," he said, "tell me how I become the next Bezos." And I smiled. "Oh, I'll tell you, Nathan. But first I'll destroy everything you love." We began with meetings. Over the next 3 months, I became his right-hand man. The golden consultant. I helped him pitch false projects, redirected his investments into dead-end ventures, and slowly turned his empire into a rotting castle built on sand. All while gaining his trust. Nathan, the arrogant boy king, never suspected a thing. He called me bro, invited me to his yacht, his penthouse, told me his secrets. I even got invited to his engagement party, to a woman named Emily. When I met her, something unexpected happened. She was kind. She looked at me like I mattered. Like I wasn't invisible. I almost felt bad. Almost. But she didn't know the monster she was marrying. She didn't know he once locked a poor kid in a dog kennel for 3 hours just to see what would happen. She didn't know that kid was me. 2 weeks before the wedding, I sent the first blow. An anonymous report to the SEC. Another to the press. I leaked confidential emails. Bribes. Shell companies. Offshore laundering. Nathan woke up one morning and the world was on fire. He called me, panicked. "Logan bro, you seeing this? What the hell's going on?" I calmly told him it was a cyber attack. "We'll figure it out," I lied. Meanwhile, I watched everything crumble. His father screamed at him on national television. Stockholders bailed. Emily postponed the wedding. And Nathan? He started unraveling. But it wasn't enough. I needed him to feel what I felt all those years ago. Small. Powerless. Alone. So I hit him where it really hurt. I leaked photos from his bachelor party, ones he never wanted Emily to see. She left him the next day. Nathan broke into my hotel that night. Drunk. Screaming. He grabbed me by the collar, spit flying. You did this. You ruined my life." And I looked him in the eye and whispered, "I warned you. 12 years ago. In your kitchen. You poured wine on me and called me a rat. I warned you that rats remember." And then I pushed him back. Security took him away. That was just the beginning. He lost everything. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because I didn't just want revenge. I wanted justice. Real justice. The kind that leaves scars. I always knew the first step had to be subtle. Not dramatic, not flashy. just enough to shake his comfort. You don't crush a monster like Daniel Whitmore by charging at him. You slowly cut away the layers until he doesn't even realize he's bleeding out. So I started with his pride. Daniel's world revolved around image. Perception was everything to him. He built his empire on curated lies, photos of philanthropy, speeches about integrity, magazine spreads of staged success. If I could tarnish that perfect reflection even just slightly, he'd spiral. Narcissists always do. Step 1. Take away the admiration. I created an anonymous Instagram account. Clean design. Catchy handle at Whitmore Wounds. First post? A well-edited video montage of Daniel berating staff at a club. Real footage I'd saved from years ago when I was his assistant. I still had copies of the security tapes, back when he forgot to fire me properly and left me with access to his shared drive. He screamed at a waitress until she cried. Called a valet a cockroach in a tuxedo. Pushed a bartender for not having the right vodka brand. The captions were crisp, cutting. Behind the suit, Daniel Whitmore when the cameras are off. It blew up within hours. Influencer accounts started sharing it. Twitter picked it up. Reddit threads called it Whitmore Gate. By day 3, several brands quietly paused their partnerships. I smiled as I watched the unraveling begin. But that was only the beginning. Daniel thought this was a fluke. A momentary glitch. So he held a press conference. Smiled with perfect teeth. Gave his usual charm. Claimed it was deep fake and context manipulation. That's when I dropped the next file. A voicemail recording. Daniel bragging about cheating investors during a merger deal. Real names, real sums, all time-stamped. It was old, but it didn't matter. It showed character. Or lack thereof. Then came the documents. Financial leaks. Anonymous emails to investigative reporters. Every shell company. Every bribe. Every time he used corporate money to fund one of his weekend drug binges. All sent with care, all traceable only to a concerned insider. I made sure he was surrounded by shadows. He fired 3 PR managers in 1 week. Deleted tweets. Turned off comments. But the internet never forgets. Still, Daniel hadn't figured out who was behind it. And that was crucial. Because step 2 was personal. Daniel had a weakness. Her name was Chloe. His girlfriend, or rather his PR accessory. A model with a perfect smile and half a clue. But she wasn't as shallow as he thought. I met her once. Briefly. She seemed tired. Fragile in the way someone gets after being groomed too long by a man like him. So I reached out. I didn't threaten. I didn't manipulate. I just sent her the truth. Every ugly thing Daniel said about her behind her back. Recordings. Text messages. A photo of him with another woman in Milan 2 months ago. At first she ignored me. Then she blocked me. Then, she left him. Publicly. Violently. Live on a podcast interview, she broke down in tears and told the world Daniel was cruel, cold, and controlling. Sponsors dropped him within hours. An exclusive sneaker collab got cancelled mid-production. His face was scrubbed off the homepage of his own fashion line. And I wasn't done. I still hadn't touched the one place he thought was untouchable, his family. Daniel's father was a senator. His mother a legacy heiress. Both obsessed with image. Daniel kept them at arm's length but used them when needed. And I knew a secret they didn't. Daniel had been funding a private abortion clinic, not out of philanthropy but to cover up his mistakes. He'd forced 3 women to get rid of pregnancies over the past 5 years. Paid for silence. Paid for procedures. I leaked it to a conservative watchdog group. They pounced like vultures. Suddenly, Daniel's name was on every talk show, not as a business mogul but as a monster. Protesters stood outside his apartment. He tried to hide. He tried to post apologies. He cried on Instagram Live. But no one was listening anymore. I watched every second of it. I tracked every headline. I recorded every twitch in his fake smile. Still I wasn't finished. Because he hadn't yet felt what I felt. That kind of pain, it's not digital. It's not reputation. It's loneliness. Isolation. A hollowing out of the soul. So I made it real. I bought the penthouse across from his. It took everything I had, years of saving, careful planning, moving funds through fake names and proxies. But I did it. And one night I waited. Lights off. Binoculars ready. He stood at his window. Pale. Thinner. Sweating. Drinking from a bottle. Alone. I stepped into my window frame, backlit just enough for him to see me. And I smiled. He flinched. Dropped the glass. Stumbled back into the shadows. He knew. He didn't know how or why or who. But he knew. And that's when the real games began. He didn't call the cops. He wouldn't dare. Not with the skeletons I'd already dragged into daylight. No, Daniel retreated like any predator caught in a trap, silent, paranoid, circling. I let him marinate in it. 2 weeks passed. Headlines cooled. His PR team tried to rebuild. He posted vague inspirational quotes. Tried to pivot to victimhood. So I escalated. I mailed him a single photograph. It was old, from college. He was passed out drunk on a couch, pants halfway down, surrounded by unconscious girls and lines of white powder. I knew he wouldn't remember the moment. That's what made it perfect. On the back I wrote in red ink, "Remember who you are." He did. At least he remembered enough to panic. I watched from my window as he paced the living room, tearing apart cushions, flipping through drawers, screaming into his phone. He fired someone that night. Maybe two. He didn't sleep. And I was just warming up. Because next came the thing he feared most: irrelevance. I found a promising young entrepreneur. A 23-year-old clothing designer from Atlanta named Marcus Lane. Smart. Hungry. With a vision bigger than his resources. I funded him. Anonymously, of course. I paid for ads, bought bots to boost his social media, bribed 2 top-tier influencers to wear his pieces. Then I leaked insider rumors that Marcus was the real mind behind some of Daniel's early designs. A ghost designer finally breaking free. It caught on. People wanted to believe Daniel was never that talented. That his empire was stolen. And I gave them every reason to. Marcus exploded overnight. Daniel tried to sue him, but there was no legal ground. Nothing to cling to. The world simply moved on. And that, for a narcissist, is worse than death. Still, it wasn't enough. He had to lose everything. One night I sent him an email. Untraceable. Encrypted. Just one sentence. "You took everything from me. Now it's your turn." He didn't reply. But the next morning I saw his bedroom curtains were duct-taped shut. He'd installed a new lock on the door. He was unraveling. I waited 4 more days. Then I made the final move of phase 2. I sent his mother an anonymous envelope. Inside, a printed transcript of Daniel threatening to choke out a junior employee who misspelled his name on a label. And a flash drive. On it, a full video of Daniel snorting cocaine off a stripper's chest while screaming, "I own this F******Ng city." 2 days later she publicly disavowed him. On a talk show. Tears. Disappointment. A quote that would follow him forever. We raised a son. But he became a stranger. Daniel went dark. Deleted all socials. Stopped appearing in public. Rumors flew. Rehab, mental breakdown, exile in Bali. I knew the truth. He was in that penthouse. Trapped. Paranoid. Alone. But it still wasn't enough. Because even now, even broken and battered, Daniel still had money. He could rebuild. Reinvent. The wealthy always find a way. So I decided to gut his finances. Methodically. Mercilessly. To destroy his finances, I needed someone on the inside. Meet Olivia Tran. Former Whitmore financial analyst. Brilliant. Underpaid. Fired 6 months ago after refusing to cover up a discrepancy in a quarterly report. Daniel blackballed her, told other firms she was unstable. She couldn't find work. I found her. I told her who I was. What Daniel did to me. What he did to her. I didn't lie. I didn't need to. She stared at me in silence for a long time, then finally said, "What do you need?" We spent weeks building the plan. First, we hacked into dormant LLCs under Daniel's name, the ones he forgot existed. Olivia still had access codes, old audit credentials. We rerouted minor payments, shifted funds through layered accounts. Nothing big. Nothing traceable at first. Just enough to loosen the bolts. Then we triggered an SEC investigation. Anonymous tip. Highlighted irregularities in foreign investments. Pointed to shell companies in Cyprus. Fabricated enough smoke to attract real fire. The stock in his holding company dropped 18% in 2 days. Daniel panicked. Tried to transfer assets. But I had already flagged the movements. Blocked. Frozen. Investigated. He couldn't touch a dollar without triggering alerts. His empire was bleeding. He sold his yacht. Then his summer house. Then his custom McLaren. He even tried pawning his watch collection, and I made sure the buyer was a paparazzi plant. Next day? Tabloid headline. From billionaire to broke, Daniel Whitmore sells Rolex to pay legal bills. I watched the comments. No sympathy. Just laughter. Memes. Rich boy can't budget. Still, even drowning, Daniel fought back. He hired a private investigator. I expected that. But I also knew something he didn't. That PI? His name was Jonathan Cole. And Jonathan owed me. 10 years ago, I helped Jonathan cover up a DUI that would have ended his license. I kept the video off the net. In return, I told him, someday I'll need a favor. That day had come. Jonathan took Daniel's money, pretended to investigate, fed him lies, fake names, false trails. Meanwhile, I kept cutting. I drained the last of Daniel's unprotected crypto accounts. Olivia buried him in fraudulent tax filings. A junior employee, another of my plants, accidentally uploaded a sensitive spreadsheet to a public drive. The press devoured it. Then I made the final cut. I posed as a buyer. I hired a proxy to schedule a meeting with Daniel, a last-ditch investor interested in salvaging what was left of his company. Daniel showed up in a wrinkled suit, bags under his eyes, twitchy and jumpy like a stray dog. We met in a downtown hotel lobby. He didn't recognize me. Why would he? To him, I was no one. Just another kid in the crowd. A servant. A shadow. But I remembered everything. Every word. Every slap. Every insult. Every humiliating task. And as he smiled and shook hands with my proxy, I stood nearby, pretending to be a bodyguard. Watching. Waiting. And just before he left, I leaned in and whispered, "We're just getting started." He froze, spun around, searched my face, but it was too late. I was already gone. That night, Daniel disappeared. No press statement. No legal filings. Nothing. For a week, silence. Then came the leak. Not from me, not directly, but from someone inside his crumbling inner circle. Maybe a disgruntled assistant. Maybe someone who just wanted a piece of the chaos. A video blurry but clear enough. Daniel, screaming into a mirror in a hotel bathroom, punching the glass, bleeding, sobbing. Repeating the same phrase over and over. It's him. It's him. He came back. It went viral in hours. Reddit, TikTok, Discord. Speculation exploded. Who was him? A ghost? A stalker? A hallucination? I didn't comment. I didn't need to. Because now the story wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to the public. And they tore him apart. In memes. In threads. In whispers. Daniel Whitmore, the icon, the mogul, was now a joke. And the best part? He had no idea who I really was. No clue that the quiet, obedient nobody from years ago had done all this. But I wasn't finished. Not yet. Because there was still one thing I hadn't taken. His freedom. And for that, I needed evidence. Real, damning evidence. That's when Olivia came through. She found it buried in a forgotten archive. An old internal email, marked confidential, from Daniel to a factory manager in Bangladesh. Read. If they can't work 16-hour shifts, find others who can. I don't care if they're underage. Just keep production up. There it was. Child labor. Documented. Confirmed. Time-stamped. And better yet, forwarded to 4 executives. All of whom had since cut ties with Daniel. We packaged it neatly. Dates, receipts, photos. Even a worker testimony translated and signed. I sent it to 3 international watchdog organizations. And 2 major news outlets. One of them ran it. Front page. Massive scandal. Government investigation launched. The rest of the dominoes fell quickly. Interpol. Trade bans. Frozen assets overseas. Daniel was issued a travel restriction. He couldn't leave the country. Then the subpoenas started coming. Class action lawsuits. Criminal charges pending. All I had to do was watch. He tried to reach out. Send a message through his lawyer. I know it's you. Please, let's talk. I sent back 3 words. Do you remember? He didn't respond again. And just like that, the final phase began. Erasure. Not just his wealth. Not just his status. But his legacy. I bought domains in his name and filled them with archive footage of every scandal. I sponsored YouTube breakdowns of his downfall. I paid ex-employees to come forward with stories. Some true. Some exaggerated. I knew how to shape a narrative. He was now synonymous with abuse, fraud, and failure. Companies purged his name. Stores pulled his brand. Former partners denied ever knowing him. And in every corner of the internet, one phrase stuck. Daniel Whitmore got what he deserved. And I walked past his shuttered flagship store one day. Graffiti covered the windows. One message stood out in black spray paint. Justice isn't loud, but it's permanent. I smiled. Because I wasn't done yet. I stood in the shadows, watching his perfect little world teeter on the edge. He didn't know it yet. He didn't know that everything he owned, everything he loved, everything he built, was seconds away from being taken from him. He didn't recognize me. Not fully. Not yet. But he would. And when the truth hit him, when he finally saw the face of the man behind the curtain, he'd understand. Not just who I was, but why. This wasn't revenge for a single punch or a cruel nickname or years of silent humiliation. This was a reckoning. It started at exactly 9 a.m. He arrived at his company headquarters like clockwork, waving to the doorman, greeting the valet by name, flashing that smug, effortless smile that had once made every teacher ignore his bullying, every girl forget his cruelty. He stepped inside the revolving door. And the cameras cut out. 10 seconds later, every monitor on the 43rd floor, his private executive floor, blacked out. The security team rushed to the screens, frantically rebooting, checking connections. But I wasn't in the building. I didn't need to be. All I needed was a single USB drive in the right server room. Planted 2 weeks ago during a fake fire drill. By someone he trusted. Someone he still trusted. The screen flickered back on. Except now, instead of the company logo, it showed a video, grainy, black and white. It was him. 17 years old. Drunk. Laughing. Standing over me, bloody on the ground, gasping for air while his friends filmed and shouted and spat. His voice echoed in the boardroom. Get a shot of his face. He's gonna remember this night forever. He was right. 3 minutes later, every employee in his building received an anonymous email with that same video. By 9:12 a.m. it was trending on Twitter. By 9:27 news outlets were running it under headlines like, Tech CEO caught in brutal bullying video, company plunges into chaos. By 10 o'clock he had lost half his board members. But this wasn't the kill shot. This was just the opening wound. At noon he tried to log into his bank accounts. Password denied. Tried his phone. Locked. Email? Locked. Personal assistant? Gone. Vanished. Left a note, I'm not part of this. The life he'd built, his fortress of luxury, was crumbling brick by digital brick. But the worst part? He had no idea who was doing it. At 2 p.m. I finally showed myself. He sat in the private restaurant atop his corporate tower. Alone. Sweating. Phone dead. Hands shaking. I walked in wearing a suit that cost more than his. Hair trimmed. Beard clean. He squinted at me, confused. Do I know you? He asked. I smiled. You should. And then I sat down across from him, opened a small leather folder and slid it across the table. Inside, photos. Documents. A detailed blow-by-blow account of how I had dismantled him over the past 6 months. Every move. Every lie. Every trap. He flipped through the pages slower and slower, until he stopped at the last photo. It was of him. Standing in front of his locker, 17 years old. And behind him, blurred, half-hidden in the frame, was me. You, he whispered. No. No, it can't be. It is. He sat back, jaw slack. The color drained from his face. I don't remember. Of course you don't, I said calmly. Why would you? I was nothing. Just another kid to step on. He looked down at the photos again, more frantic now, flipping back, scanning for some detail that would explain it, undo it. Why now? He rasped. Why all of this? I was a kid. And I was your victim. For years. He stood up, knocking over his glass. I can fix this. I have lawyers. I have. You had lawyers. By 5 p.m. the company's stock had tanked. By 6 o'clock, criminal investigations were announced. By 7 o'clock, a second video leaked. This time of him at 19, bribing a police officer after a hit and run. It was over. But I wasn't finished. He returned home that night to find his mansion empty. Not robbed. Cleaned out. The paintings. The rare guitars. The luxury watches. Gone. All moved. Legally. Transferred. Taken by companies he didn't know were owned by me. Shells I'd spent years setting up. His ex-wife was gone too. Along with his daughter. I'd never touched them, never involved them, but I'd shown them the truth. Quietly. Privately. They left on their own. He stood in the center of his marble foyer, surrounded by silence. And finally he broke. I watched from the car across the street. He fell to his knees. Screamed. Slammed his fists into the ground. I didn't feel joy. This wasn't about that. This was about balance. He stole my youth. My confidence. My peace. So I took his empire. Piece by piece. A week later he tried to rebuild. No one would hire him. His name was poison. He begged for interviews. Apologies. Talk shows. No one cared. The internet doesn't forget. And neither did I. I left the country 2 months later. Changed my name again. Quiet. Anonymous. But free. Completely, finally free. And every now and then, when I check the news and see some faded story about his bankruptcy or failed podcast or public breakdown, I don't smile. I don't cheer. I just whisper. I told you. You'd remember this forever.